Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to give you a little update on measures 66 and 67 here in the state of Oregon. First of all, let me give you some history of this issue. We started the session out knowing that we were going to have some shortfalls. We started the session out thinking we were going to have some dramatically large shortfalls in our budget. As it turned out, it wasn't nearly as severe as we had anticipated. In fact, at the onset of the budget process, we Republicans brought in a balanced budget to the Democrats and presented it to them. Brought it up. It was sloughed off as being baloney by the governor. I believe that's what he said. Even though the governor had never really checked out of the ability of this budget being a good budget, having the funding available to it, he just said it was baloney and never went farther with that. What 66 and 67 are is a tax increase. 66 will make us, Oregon, the highest paid personal tax income state in the United States. 67 is a corporate tax that I call a no-profit tax. We will charge a business that has lost money a tax on their gross sales. Now, I put that in perspective as if you didn't work last year, or you did work and you had some sales, but you lost money on those sales. You bought some things for $80 and tried to sell them for $90, but you could only sell them for $70. We're going to charge you the difference between the $70 and the $80, even though you lost money. Instead of approaching this in the proper way, if people are worried about some corporations not paying taxes, you change the tax code. You don't change an arbitrary figure, and what this is actually a corporate registration tax, not a minimum tax as it's being so called by the people that want this tax in place. Now, those are the two taxes we're faced with. But let me also give you some background that I thought it was very interesting that pretty much early in the session it was determined that we were going to slice about $529 million off of our school system. Keep that in mind, off the start of it, we're going to deduct from the schools, but then in the budget that was brought forth by the Democrats, there was about $250 million in the budget for raises for middle and upper management given out by the governor. That's $250 million. That could have went to schools. Also, I keep hearing that we cut back government. We cut back government. Well, in actuality, what has happened here, folks, is the people in charge that want to have services expanded, and I repeat, want to have services expanded, and they went up about 15%. Then they deducted off that 15% of what they thought it should be and went down to 9% or 9.4%. Then they said, we're cutting our government. We aren't cutting our government. Government grew, even though we shorted schools, $529 million. Government grew 9.4%, or monetary terms, $4.7 billion more this biennium than last biennium. That, to me, is more, not less. We have the same tactics this referral on Measure 66 and 67 that, if you recall in the past, Measure 28 and 30 that came down to us, voters, remember Measure 28, they were saying that if we don't do that, we're going to throw grandma in the snowbank, schools will shut down, the police will have to let out all the prisoners, blah, 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 blah. Well, 28 failed. Government grew even after the failure of Measure 28. Then let's move forward to Measure 30. Same argument. We're going to hold hostage your schools. We're going to hold hostage your public safety and your prisons and your elderly. Measure 30 failed. Government did not come to an end like was predicted by the governor. Government grew again in spite of the loss of Measure 30. So now we're fast forward to Measure 66 and 67. What are the tactics? Well, again, we're back to we're going to cut schools, we're going to cut services, we're going to cut public safety. I think it's a tragedy that this same old argument is used by the people that want to increase your taxes in the state of Oregon. I think that you need to know that they're making out a class distinction and a class warfare out of this. It's, quote, the big businesses. Well, folks, we're not talking about the big businesses. We're talking about small businesses in the state. The majority of people are going to be hurt will be small businesses. Now, having said that, there are some people that do not pay taxes because they don't make money. But why should they be penalized when they do not make money? We're talking about fairness. That, to me, is the most unfair thing we could possibly do. Our business community came forth and tried to work with the Democrats in the state of Oregon to forge an idea and a plan. And they were buying in on it. The business community wanted to work with the legislature and have some sort of a temporary tax to get us out of this shortfall. The sad part about it is they were completely rejected. The sad part about it is the only reason this is a permanent tax is because we had a senator that would not vote for it unless it became a permanent tax. So what we've done, in essence, is similar to what we do in Washington, D.C. We bought a vote. You vote for it, we'll fix it the way you want it. That's a travesty. But that is what happened. When you go to take your ballot, read the pros and cons, you're going to find out that there's some misleading information. I believe the people that went yes had some real interesting first and last ambiguous, in my opinion, arguments. But I guess the question is this. Does Oregon, that has grown its government 9.4% during a recession, $4.7 billion during a recession, purposely shorted its schools, gave $250 million to raises for government employees, that's middle and upper management only, not the people that do the work, but it's the management area. Do they deserve more money? Do they deserve to have government grown and government itself continue to grow at your expense? That's the question. I have in my hand a little door hanger that's brought out by the people that are against this measure. There's two interesting points in it. One is what President Obama said. The last thing you want to do is to raise taxes in the middle of a recession. That's what President Obama stated. On the other side, and you will see this, they're talking about the loss of approximately 70,000 jobs in the state of Oregon. The other interesting factor is the graph that's on the back. You're going to see since 2005 to 2007, or 2007 to 2009, I'm sorry, that government jobs have actually grown. In fact, they've grown 5,100 new government jobs just in the last 2 years. While the private sector, the engine of the economy and the revenue for the state of Oregon in taxation is the private sector, has shrunk 131,500 jobs. And yet, instead of extending a hand to business in order to help it with a better environment in this state to employ more people, instead of extending a hand, we kicked it in the ribs when it was flat on its back. I urge you to take a very hard look at this, and I urge you to really scrutinize what this government is doing. This government is growing bigger, it's growing larger, and it's growing at your expense. Thank you, and get out to vote.